internally, the biggest hurdle I think today, which we don't often talk about, is the significance of how people that have been in this industry a long time think of multifamily. And how do you kind of root them out of that and shake them and make them think differently? So I think early on, it's all about getting stakeholders and leadership to buy in.
And the thing that probably I'm more interested in, excited about than anything else is this idea that as things get more centralized, right, as we become less dependent on this coverage model for delivering property management, stuff will move more into shared services environments. And once stuff starts to move into shared services, I think the possibilities for automating stuff increase way more.
I'm overly excited in sharing our sponsors for today's episode, and that is Blue Steel Security Services, a trusted leader in providing top-tier security solutions for multifamily apartment communities. These folks and family members are redefining what it means to feel secure. With over 30 years of experience in the industry, they know how to keep your community and, most importantly, your people safe. Whether you need on-site security, patrol services, or cutting-edge surveillance technology, Blue Steel's highly trained team has you covered. For all your security needs at fair and affordable rates that work within your budget, check out Blue Steel Security Services. And thank you, Blue Steel Security Services. PropTech, PropTech, PropTech. It's a buzzword. It's on everyone's lips. John and I are very, very excited to welcome Dom Beveridge, principal from 20 and 20. Sorry, 2420. My fault. That was horrible of me. And of course, we're talking everything PropTech, AI specific, how it growing into the industry, multifamily. Dom, first off, thank you so much for flying in and joining us.
Not at all, not at all. I'm glad we made it work. We've been talking about it for a while.
We have.
Well, we're very eager to dive into that brain of yours to understand a little bit further of where our industry's going with PropTech. And before we get going, if it's okay with you, Dom, we talked about this before we were on camera. Can you define PropTech for us?
It's a tricky one. It's a convenient sort of term, but I can't remember who I was reading. One of the VC companies was saying the problem with it as a term is it's both too specific and also not specific enough, right? So the technology that we use doesn't have to be specific to properties, right? There's lots of other kinds of technologies that we use. And the value that it delivers is not explicitly to do with technology either. There's lots of other stuff that sort of combines. But I guess it's a sort of convenient term that just describes anything that's focused on adding value to the property, in my view. That's a very broad definition.
Actually, a very good definition. John, anything you'd like to add on top?
No, I think that's a great explanation. I think anything that adds value is correct. And that could be, if you break that down, value to what? To the ownership group, to a management company, development company, residents alike. So I think it fits a bunch of different slivers of multifamily.
I mean, once you get into things like asset management analytics, like that fits that description. You then start to realize you're sort of out to the edges of stuff because it's for people in offices, not like but I think it's a good enough definition personally.
We're going to roll with it, right?
Okay.
We're going to roll with it. Dom, because one, our special guest, two, you flew in specifically for this and then are off to the northern part of the country.
Yes.
You're off to?
I am off to spend some time with our friends at Property Meld up in South Dakota, up in Rapid City.
South Dakota, first visit from what I understand.
Yes.
All right, you're going to have fun. It's a perfect time of year from what I understand, from what you were just telling me, since that was your neighboring
place to
town.
be.
There we go.
From September 5th through September 30th.
Nice. You're right in the middle. You're good. Yeah. Dom, tell us about 20 for 20 and how, you've spent decades, not just local, globally, in the PropTech world.
Well, my PropTech experience is all since I've lived in the US, so it's all in the last 15 years or so. 20 for 20 really got started out of a company I was working with previously. It was a consulting firm. We were doing consulting predominantly in the arena of revenue management. But what we started to find was that more and more companies that were getting funded were looking to figure out how to get into this sort of crowded market that we have right now. So there's, you think about PropTech, you think about how overlapping all the different technologies are. You think you've got best of breed companies that are trying to compete in a market that's dominated by RealPage, Yardi, and Appfolio.
Sure.
You think about the sort of crowdedness and the noise in the market. I just found that people kept coming to me in particular to say, look, we need to figure out how to get this in front of more people. And I as well as having been a consultant for a long time, I'd spent a few years as a CMO. So I understood how B2B demand gen works. I did a lot of content generation. And basically, increasingly, it seemed obvious to me that it's time to break out a book of clients into a separate organization that does consulting and also publishing in this arena of PropTech.
Fantastic.
There you go. I brought it back to the
I love
Seinfeld style, back to the...
I love right to the beginning, topic of today. So the past decade and a half being in PropTech, tell me what you've seen differ going back to 15 years ago.
It's interesting. It really feels like the main thing is probably the barriers to entry on technology have changed, right?
Okay.
So if I think about even 15 years ago, I mean, most of the big changes, you're moving PMSs to sort of web-based, that kind of stuff were already in place. But the SaaS revolution was in full swing. If you think about 20 years ago, what it was like doing a technology project, like it was either something that you had to buy from a relatively small number of companies, or if you would do it yourself, it was a multi-year sort of long sort of process. It wasn't the case that there's all this stuff you can sort of grab off the shelf, and the barriers to entry into creating new technologies or creating your own stack with lots of different capabilities in it, those barriers all seem to have come down. We still live in this environment that's dominated by PMS vendors, but it's in terms of variety, flexibility, and the possibilities that companies like you guys are capitalizing on seems sort of richer and more accessible than it used to.
And AI, of course, is part of this conversation, right? How do you see that helping our industry, specific multifamily, for the resident experience?
I mean, in a lot of different ways, but I mean, the thing that probably I'm more interested in, excited about than anything else is this idea that as things get more centralized, right, as we become less dependent on this coverage model for delivering property management, stuff will move more into shared services environments. And once stuff starts to move into shared services, I think the possibilities for automating stuff increase way more. If you think about, there's some really good applications of AI that we have at Property that we've been using for years, but they all fit into the kinds of work that people do at property level. It's AI that answers the phone and talks to people. It's AI that nags at people for collections. It fits into this paradigm of how we do property management, like at the moment. But I think as more stuff moves more central, people will just get to think bigger about what kinds of work we should be doing versus the technology. And I think that could move quickly at some point once people start to get over some of these initial hurdles with centralization.
John, I think it goes without saying, we're data junkies, data nerds. We love it. We love consuming it. We love collecting it. We love learning from it. How has Mark Taylor been able to utilize AI for notifying or seeking emerging market trends?
I just think we're in the early stages, as Dom referred to. So obviously, you're aware we have ION, our centralization platform, integrated operations.
I've heard
network.
about it.
Yeah, you've heard about
Yeah.
it. And I think the challenge is to really, as an organization that's almost 40 years in business and understanding a specific model that you've always known to be tried and true, that, okay, we're going to flip it on its head, and we're going to really reframe the complexity and complete nature of how we operate our assets. And I think looking at it from a holistic view, centralization, as Dom mentioned, even today, a lot of the tech that is provided to the multifamily sector is really driven towards a one property type environment. And the centralization piece of ION's really opened our eyes to thinking about it differently. So I think we're, as Mark Taylor with ION, early stages, yes, we're introducing AI. Certainly with Taylor, we're excited about our AI generative voice and text that's coming out in just a few weeks. I think, looking back at the evolution of that, it's been really hard to figure out how we do this just across multiple assets. And I think now that we've understood that there's ways to do that, we've podded properties through Ion. So by pods, meaning we have such a concentration in this environment in Phoenix, specifically with assets within local submarkets, that we can really start to share staff, communication, all of those tools. So I think, not to go too far down the road, but right now, we're solving with Taylor, we'll solve for those individual type situations. So we're going to answer the phone for a prospect seeking property XYZ. But how does Taylor, how does AI expand that eventually to, let's just say we have 10 qualified service technicians for plumbing in the Southwest Valley. How does AI then incorporate that into a maintenance request demand stack? So you might have 15 work orders in Southwest Valley on a Monday morning. Do we have enough plumbing technicians that can support those plumbing type roles within that space? And then AI generates the scheduling aspect of that and supports a real focused call out. So all of those are scheduled on demand. They're communicated with the the resident in a timely manner. So almost like Uber, right? When they're going to arrive, when they're there, what they did, when they left. And that's it. There's no question around what's happened or transpired during that process. So I just think we're on the very first stage, 1.0, of what AI will do to our business. And that's just one little example.
I mean, one of the things that you're touching on there is that is you have to have this data, this sort of granular data about who did what, right? And if you think about it, in most multifamily communities, the typical 300 unit community, you just don't really have that information, right? People may or may not use the mobile app that was given to them to address the work orders in their property. Lots of them just like print it out because cell phone reception isn't great over that side of the building. Do you know what I mean? There's lots of that. And so how do you to do the stuff that you're describing? The key thing that you have to fix is you can't make your maintenance teams. You can't organize their day differently unless you really know what they're doing, right? And that sounds like a really basic thing, but it's a step that lots of people haven't taken yet. So, you think about the AI has the ability to handle things like triage and dispatch, and it can figure out what the best resource is to send to which job. Again, that stuff's all immensely powerful, but yes, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you making sure that you have that really good record of what the work orders are, who did them, how they were resolved, etc., is necessary for the AI to do what it can be really good at.
Well, let's stick with challenges. I mean, we're talking about multifamily specifically, property management companies, PMCs. There are so many options out there when it comes to PropTech, right? Based on what your need is or what you're trying to design, trying to achieve. What are some challenges that our industry is facing right now that we should know about?
So
it's a broad question.
It's a broad question. Let's stick on centralization for a minute, since it's just a really hot topic right now. So we've talked a bit about maintenance. I always like to think about it in these three buckets of admin, leasing, and maintenance. Those are the three broad sort of types of work that you have to move. And it's like from admin to maintenance, they get harder and harder in terms of what you can actually take off site. If you think of everything that's to do with move in, move out, collecting rents, deposits, whatever APM spend most of their time doing, there's no good reason why that needs to be done at property at all. Most of the questions about staffing relate to coverage rather than to, it's really important that month-end accounting gets done in that office, right? It's so with admin, it's relatively low friction to take that off site, and it's really a better idea, right? That suits a shared services environment. Well, there's lots of parts of leasing that suit the shared service environment as well, but you still need some ability to meet people and close leases, right? Of course. Do the sales work. So that means you've got some need for people to do some leasing work at a property. And then you've got maintenance where you can't automate away most maintenance tasks. There's lots of stuff that you can do, as John was describing, to use resources more efficiently, like to pod resources between properties, be smarter about how you allocate people to tasks. But the extent to which you couldn't go as far with maintenance as you can go with admin, because somebody ultimately has to unblock the toilet right at the end of the
You mean AI can't do that for us?
No, yeah, I'm sure somebody's working on it.
That scares me. That scares me. John, we're talking about a change, a shift in our industry. We've been talking about this for a long time, of course. Not just us. I'm just talking the entire industry, the entire vertical. There's going to be pushback. There's going to be resistance. How do you see that being managed the proper way moving forward?
Well, I think ultimately the residents win, because we're striving to, as not only Mark Taylor, Ion, but as an industry. I think centralization has been talked about for a long time. It's still in the early stages. Let's not kid ourselves. So I think the residents ultimately win. I use the Uber example. You go from a taxi union type environment in San Francisco to an open platform Uber, reduced pricing, less friction, and I think that's what we're really talking about: friction. How do we create a frictionless experience for our prospects who become residents? Now we're servicing them on the maintenance side, all of those things, but you have to get buy-in. So I think internally, the biggest hurdle I think today, which we don't often talk about, is just the significance of how people that have been in this industry a long time think of multifamily. Mm-hmm. And how do you kind of root them out of that and shake them and make them think differently? So I think early on, it's all about getting stakeholders and leadership to buy in. So you really have to be clear about why you're doing it, what's the vision, explain exactly what you're thinking about, and then what you're trying to activate on. Give them all the whys. Do test cases, right? Do mini rollouts to ensure that there's local buy-in, meaning at the site level or admin team or service team, so they start to see whatever you're designing within that centralization platform specifically, to see how it works. And you're going to get pushback. That's a given, right? No, this is how this works for me. And people oftentimes feel really comfortable with, okay, I know how to show up for work, and I know how to win today, and I know how to be successful. But when I'm challenged with something different, it's hard to see sometimes that opportunity, right? Challenges are really opportunities that are just hard work. That's that old quote. So can you shine it up and say, okay, here's what we're envisioning, and then get them to a point where they believe in it. And it's early adopter, late adopter, but you got to get a high percentage of that contingency to say, okay, I'm starting to see it. I don't quite get it, but I'm all in. I'm going for it. And then you start to chip away, and you start to branch that out into different groups, different leaders, different early adopters, and it starts to snowball, right? You get that flywheel effect, and you move forward. So I think buy-in's key, leaders, and getting everyone to see it from a sample size perspective, and then build it out.
Dom, you're going to love this piece, because I know we just met, but of course, when it came to self-guiding touring, John's talking about pushback, not understanding. I was that guy, and he's like, no, you get out there, you do it from start to finish. Guess who's the biggest cheerleader now? I love it. Yeah, I just love it. Absolutely love it.
So one of the it's funny. Yesterday I was interviewing a bunch of asset managers about you and I, John, have talked about a centralization project that we're working on at the moment. But now I'm going through, having spoken to a bunch of third-party managers, I'm now talking to a bunch of asset managers to try and understand how they're viewing this proposition. So just by way of background, I'm really interested in the third-party management part of this, like when we talk about buy-in in particular, most of the examples that you see in the industry when you go to a panel about centralization, they tend to be about UDR or Essex Properties or Cortland or Veritas or one of these companies that completely owns their environment and has properties that are really close together, and on the face of it has this very ideal opportunity to change the way that they staff their properties. But most of the industry is not like that. The industry is far more third-party managed than it used to be, which means that for most of the industry to get access to these benefits, they need to figure out a way to do this in a multi-stakeholder environment, and that's a completely different ball of wax. One of the most interesting things that I heard from the COO of one of the big third-party managers was that when they look at the stories that come out of the REITs, for example, the key thing that he says is different is predictability. He said there's just a predictability to a business where you have control over everything that's just completely different from if you have a multi-stakeholder environment. Like if you think about the idea of getting buy-in, there's big change management work you have to do even if you're a REIT, right? You have to get this right. You have to get the message right. You have to get the change management right and everything. But you can still roughly predict what's going to happen. These people all work for you. They're you're in an environment where you have much more control than you do elsewhere. In an environment where I want everybody to change their operating to this new operating model that I'm proposing.
Right.
Some people are not going to accept it. They're just going to say not interested. But what he was saying was the thing that's tough is lots of people who don't want to do it will agree to it and quietly quit on it. Like there's all kinds of things like that you don't really have that range of possibilities when you control everything. But when you've got multiple stakeholders, you've really got to understand what's in it for them.
Sure.
Right? And
well, if you add to that, if you think about an asset manager for a third-party group and they have just say 5 clients, 15 assets, arbitrary numbers, and they're basically told or asked to, hey, you're voluntold to do this. Now you have to have buy-in. If you don't, they might just quit from a communication perspective. Like, hey, owner, Dom, I know you're owner. I got to do this. Like, let's try it out for a month. If you see any holes in this, just let me know and we'll squash it. I'll go back and say, you're not interested for your assets. So I just think that's a big piece of it from the third-party perspective. So you really have to get buy-in from those trusted ownership groups that you've worked with for a long time. And it's hard today because we don't have a lot of specific data to just say, hey, this is black and white. We know it's a better operating model. I know it will be, and we have some tested data that's proving that out. But I don't have the full-on white paper just yet. So you really have to bite into the trust tree and get some of that from existing owners on the third-party side. And it's a hard sell sometimes.
I think it's a really interesting, probably 2 or 3 years we're in at the moment, because my perception so far is you've got a spectrum of what different third-party managers are doing. Like you guys, I would say, are definitely towards the front of the curve on centralizing, figuring out the third-party model for this.
We'll invite you back for that comment. Thanks, Dom. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely not everybody is where you are thus far. But then when you look at their clients, when you talk to their clients about it, they're sort of interested in this. But the sort of prevailing attitude is, we're interested in this. We can think of lots of places where it works. We can sort of tell that most of our third-party management partners are sort of figuring this out right now. So we're not quite convinced it's time to jump yet. And when they really push us to do it, they don't have the data points yet. They can't tell us, here are 3 examples of similar properties where this worked. So you can sort of tell there's this sort of, they're all sort of around the dance floor at the moment,
waiting for someone to dance. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great points, John. I'm gonna bring this back because I think it's important. We talked about the pushback. Educate, show them, have them be part of it, buying in it, as you said earlier, right? I love that you brought up the end goal. It's not only for our people. We're always a people-first organization. It's about finding those efficiencies, right, for our own team members. But the end goal is for the residents. So when we talk about the benefits from Mark Taylor incorporating AI PropTech, what is the benefit? How does this take care of make us better as far as our daily operations, moving towards the resident experience?
It's exactly that. It's the resident experience.
Yeah.
So if go back to Jeff Bezos when he started Amazon, look at it from the customer perspective. So if I'm a brand new prospect to a market, say Phoenix, and I start to search for an apartment community, a future home, I'm going to navigate towards, I'm looking at Class A, and based on the first touch, so maybe I get an ad surfaced as I start to search apartments. Maybe it's designed nicely, it looks great, and I start to engage. So say it's Mark Taylor, but I'm going to engage differently than maybe Domwell or Gen Z, Alyssa, Brian, you. So it might be, I might call, someone might text, they might just want to do a chat, they might want AI. You have to be really good at all of these different lines of communication. And I think most importantly, prospects today, and I think this is indicative of where we are today, they want everything right now, and it needs to be accurate, right? So these things have created that, right? It's habit, it's apps, I can get it right now. So I think for us in the multifamily space, we have to be really good at doing that 24/7. We've been okay from 9 to 5, right? We're certainly not great. We're not even good from 5 until 4 in the morning, or whatever time frame that is when the office is closed. So how do you centralize and support the needs of the residents 24/7? AI certainly, light bulbs go off. Like, you have an opportunity to provide a service level that is 5-star, because now you have a 24/7 employee or support system. It's augmenting the reality of what we do today, right? It's not just AI, but it's AI layered on top of great people, great systems, great programs, great companies. So I think all of those things will generate a positive 5-star review, which is what we're looking for, right? To create that 5-star experience. So that's a big component of it.
I'll give you a use case that really caught my imagination. So I just published a paper about visualization, right? So, as you were explaining, like the on demand, I want to do everything through my phone. I want everything now. Like one of the kind of consequences of that is software's getting more visual. Like, if you think about, this paper I just wrote, we involved like 12 different companies with different technologies, all of whom have incorporated maps in different ways into their technology. Some of them do analytics, some of them do wayfinding, some of them, whatever it is.
Okay.
But that becomes way more, as people are more autonomous and less guided as they go around properties, like maps become more and more important. One of my favorite use cases that I was not aware of until I researched this paper is that one of the AI vendors is using digital property maps to train its AI. Now, if you think about that in terms of, I want it now, right? The thing that enables them to do that you couldn't do using any of the other sources of information that we've currently got is it's the AI, you can teach it to sort of reason about things that are to do with the physical properties. So there's no way you could train an AI to answer a question like, is there another apartment above this apartment? Or how far is this apartment from the dog park? Or, will my king size bed fit in the second bedroom? But when you train the AI to read the dimensions of a map, and you start to store the information that it understands, so it's accessible for other apps, this environment that's actually way more data rich than the environment where we were relying on people to read documents. You see, I mean, that feels to me like it's going to become more and more advantageous as we go along.
So we've talked about how AI is helping our industry, how AI is making our employees that much more efficient. Of course, the end game is to elevate the resident experience. Is there anything in AI for the leadership landscape? Would that mold us in a different way?
So I think there are sort of near-term and potentially really interesting long-term answers to that question. So in the near term, that thing I was saying earlier about, I think we go more centralized, and as we go more centralized, we go more automated. And that's a path that many industries have trodden, like before multifamily, right? So again, I can't remember whose quote it is, but it's automate the mundane, deliver the exceptional, whatever the
It's a FedEx CEO.
It's FedEx, okay. In fact, was it you who you brought that up on the car? Okay, fair enough. So I do listen.
Thank you. That's why I knew I liked you.
Better than I.
There we go. So I see things going down that path. So again, if I think I'm a leader at a property, that tells me that I'm going to be less and less bogged down in the minutiae of stuff, and at least for the foreseeable future, it feels like everyone's more focused on high touch sales and service delivery, right? So that means you're indexing more towards those skills and less towards the administrative stuff that we probably look for, have historically looked for. Longer term, somebody I was talking to somebody about this, and they just had this really interesting thought about this. So that thing I was saying earlier, that leasing is harder to take off site than admin, maintenance is harder to take off site than either of them. It may be that you ultimately reach a point where you can get leasing self-serve, automated. You can share resources sufficiently that basically most of the people on site, their job is to do with maintenance and service delivery rather than either of those two other things. Mm-hmm. So if we think longer term about, we know that maintenance people tend to be the most underappreciated people in multifamily, right? But do we have a scenario where you need that to be a bigger and bigger part of your skill set? Because that's most of the people that are going to be on site one day in the future.
I'm supporting that theory. I mean, the service teams are so important to our success, and I think that will continue to grow. Uh-huh. If I'm a young service tech today, and I'm thinking about my future career path, I think you could become the face of that community, right? Because you are that connection point, and you're absolutely right to finish that statement. Humanize the exceptions, right? So you automate all of these things, you surface all of this data, you create all of these tools, but you need someone to really oversee that, I think, as a human, and understand how to execute the plan with all of that information and data. But I think you're absolutely right on the service side. It's going to be people that are on the site that make the biggest difference, and there's going to be less of them. Mm-hmm. That's for certain. Mm-hmm. So how do we augment that service level to support that person when they need someone in person? It's a big piece.
Is there something like, I don't know, does the community manager of the future look more like some sort of highly tech-enabled building super kind of skill set? Is it? I wonder if that's going to be indicative of where things might go.
It's amazing to think about, though, isn't it? It is.
Endless possibilities.
You mentioned having the vision as far as talking about the maintenance tech that you were just describing. That's a leader in my eyes when you're trying to look at the future, right? Mm-hmm. Can AI have leaders be innovative and promote growth?
Again, I just think it's a tool. It's a tool that you can utilize. I use AI every day, and I think many of us do. So how do you continue to evolve as a leader within your company or industry by I guess, activating the AI of today and what we see will be developed tomorrow? So I think there's a lot of opportunity within how AI gets used, how it supports future leaders in terms of growth, teachings. Do you need to go to a 4-year college in 2030 to learn a specific skill set, or does AI augment your reality in terms of your day, your week, your month, your year, in terms of, if you commit 3 hours a day to this subject, you'll be an expert. You'll be at a bachelor's degree level in this particular category. And based on your testing and your interaction, AI says this person qualifies. Like, we don't even have a GPA. No, you passed. Yeah. So employers start to recognize that. I just think there's going to be a complete shift in all sectors, including education, because of AI.
Dom, what do you think? Is it?
It's like I'm sort of excited. I don't feel I can predict where it's going, but I'm excited with the stuff John's talking about. I mean, do people? Do you really need to go? Does everyone really need to go to college in an environment where the learning part of it is probably better executed by a robot, right? Than by going to
less dead too. Less dead,
exactly. Yeah,
a lot less. Let's close, because this has been fantastic, of course, and thank you so much again for being with us. John was talking a little bit about maybe different trends happening as far as college. Do you see any emerging trends with AI moving forward?
Loads, but I mean, all right. So the first thing that sprang into my mind.
You're going to freak us all out right now, aren't you?
Maybe I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know, but like let me try this out. So I was recently doing a lot of work on fraud detection. So we know that fraud has just become this bigger and bigger thing in the sort of post-pandemic era, and there are broadly two ways to stop it. One is to have AI analyze documents, and the other is to link through to people's banks and figure out figure the picture out from from their income.
Trends, exactly.
And one of the really interesting philosophical debates. So I spoke to all of the best of breed vendors and tried to get them to really tell me what was different between them and their competitors. And you realize it's quite a philosophical difference, whether I think this is mostly about figuring out people's income stability based on their bank records, or whether it's mostly about me figuring out when people are trying to get past me with fake documents. And one of the most interesting things that I heard about AI was from one of the companies that's very, very much focused on the bank linking kind of approach, was saying that like it has to be the case at some point where the AI on the bad guy's side, or the AI that's faking the documents, doesn't make any mistakes in the documents that are being analyzed by the AI on the good guy's side. So, when you get a fake pay stub or you get a fake bank statement or something, it's going into, sorry, I'm getting paper. We're talking about electronic documents, but you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's going into metadata and it's figuring out all these really, really tiny details that are like slightly off. And that's a really smart use of AI. But the question that I don't know the answer to is, shouldn't the AI on the other side be able to create perfect documents with no mistakes in them? And if they can, how long is it going to continue to work to use
to identify
AI analysis to protect?
Yeah.
So it's one of these it's one of these things where it's like a conversation between two robots that we're just watching.
Sure.
Which we've seen happen, right?
Right.
No, it's the battle of CrowdStrike versus Russian hacker.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
One up. Yeah, you're right.
For every positive, there's got to be a negative at some point.
Yeah.
Well, Dom, thank you again for joining us today. This has been great.
Yeah, no problem.
I continue to just be educated and then at the same time excited and then a little fearful in the background. But knowing where we're going, what's been driving us, PropTech, AI, et cetera, it's exciting. It's an exciting time. And John, as always, just kind of seeing that innovation and vision for how Mark Taylor can not only make us that much more efficient, not only for ourselves, but for our clients, our teammates continuously each and every day, and then the end goal being to the resident experience. So really appreciate it. We have a tradition, I hope you've seen in previous episodes. We like to just give a little what we're thankful for today, what we're grateful for today. Do you have anything in mind, Dom?
Yes, going back to the conversation about where I'm going next. I'm grateful for clients that that are really committed to furthering the industry conversation and developing really good content. One of the things I've noticed this year, I've spent more of my time at vendor events, taking part in vendor events than commercial ones. And what you find is they give you a way better opportunity to develop content and to have much, much deeper discussions. There's 4 different things this year where I'm either running workshops or keynoting or something like that. But for me, it gives me the opportunity to say, what is the best possible answer to this question I'm supposed to be talking about? And you don't get that at industry conferences. The panel structure that you have means the conversation is very limited. So yeah, I'm grateful for any company that's trying to push the envelope on content and drive the industry conversation.
Nice. John?
I'm really at a point in my life where I appreciate thoughtful folks like Dom who will push the edge of the envelope with us. And I just think there's a lot of opportunity ahead. We're no longer defined by a PMS in this industry, not to pick on, I think great job, RealPage, Yardi, all of those folks. But I think we're now on the cutting edge of, okay, now we can really focus on ways that can really, I'll say, exponentially accelerate what we're doing to support our residents and create exceptional homes. So I'm excited about that. I'm thankful for being in a time frame in life where I can access AI, where I can start to see this next revolution. It's truly the 4th, industrial revolution, and I'm excited a lot about what's ahead. And I would be excited if I was here during other times, but man, I'm just happy to be here in 2024 and to see what's going to happen.
You have a little piece of what I was going to say as well, in that born in '75, that time you still had to get up and go to the TV to change the channel. There weren't even remotes yet. Seeing the evolution and how we've progressed and having No cell phones, mini computers basically in your pocket, AI, PropTech, and it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see. I'm grateful that I've been through all those different generations, and just, again, watching the evolution happen right in front of my eyes. Yeah. I'm ready for it. Are you ready? I think we're there.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving forward, though.
Hopefully.
Multifamily forward. Thank you again, Dom Beveridge,
Thank you.
John Carlson, Adam Greco. We will see you soon.